Hey guys! Tonight we travel back to a time when the gap between silver spoons and soot-black fingernails was measured not just in wealth, but in staircases. You wake up not to sunlight or birdsong, but to the sharp clang of the wake-up bell echoing down a bare stone corridor. You're in the servants' quarters, more like a converted attic with 7 other bodies crammed into a space that wouldn't qualify as a pantry upstairs. The air is icy, breath fogs before your face. Your straw-stuffed mattress has left a crisscross pattern on your cheek, and your bones ache like you're twice your age. You sit up groggily, already regretting it. There's no time to stretch. Someone's muttering curses under their breath. The bell will ring twice more, and if you're not downstairs by the final chime, Mrs. Hudson, the housekeeper, will not hesitate to dock your wages. Again, you pull on your uniform and practice silence. Stiff collar, rough wool tunic apron, and heavy-soled shoes that have seen more polishing than most people's futures. There's no such thing as a lie-in, not even on Sundays. Even Christmas starts with coal buckets and chamber pots. Outside your cramped quarters, the hall is dim lit by a single oil lamp swaying slightly on its hook. Your stomach grumbles. No food yet, not until after the family's breakfast, and even then, only if cook is feeling generous, which she rarely is, and never before tea. Your first task. Make the house appear like it's been waiting immaculate and warm for its masters to awaken. Never mind that you've barely slept 4 hours. You trudge through the servants' stairwell, narrow, steep, and cold as a crypt. Down past the laundry, the boot room, and into the main corridor, where the scullery maid is already struggling with a pail half her size. You offer a hand, and she grins through grime. You're both too tired to speak. Historians still argue whether Edwardian houses ran more efficiently under fear or sheer routine, and you're pretty sure it's a bit of both. The structure is military. The staff moves like a machine. You're a cog in a clock you never get to watch. You make it to the scullery where the day's real beginning waits. Coal buckets for the fireplaces upstairs. You lug one after another through the endless halls, filling grates, avoiding rugs, brushing soot off your cuffs as best you can. The brass knobs and banisters need polishing too, fingerprint-free, gleaming like sunlight even though it's barely dawn. And then there's the bell board, the one upstairs guests use to summon servants like you with a flick of a finger. Each room has its own bell, and when it chimes, you run. If it rings twice before you get there, Mrs. Hudson will know. The gentry, of course, are still asleep in downy beds behind velvet drapes. They'll stir at a more civilized hour, but by then, you'll have lit fires in 17 rooms, fetched fresh water in basins, and hauled out enough chamber pots to float a small ship. One of your least favorite parts, cleaning the master's hunting boots. They smell of wet dog and blood, and the laces are always crusted with something unidentifiable. But leave a speck of mud on the heel, and the valet will have words. This is your everyday. You are anonymous, near invisible. But if something goes wrong, if a lamp smokes, or the firewood is damp, or someone upstairs trips over a misplaced boot, you'll be seen very quickly. By now you're sweating through your shift wool and your fingernails are black with ash. But there's something oddly comforting about the routine. The way everyone below stairs has their place. The way the house breathes before the family does. You steal a glance through the servants' door to the main hallway. Tall ceilings, polished oak, and morning light filtered through stained glass. You'll never walk that hall properly, not unless you're carrying something or cleaning it. Still, for a second you pretend. Then someone calls your name sharply and you're back. There's a knotted rag to find a clock to wind and a copper kettle screeching for attention. You return to the warmth of the kitchen corridor, wiping your hands on your apron. You pass under a faded wall sign painted years ago. Service is duty. Duty is silent. And you nod because really what else can you do? You grab the blackened rag from the peg by the scullery sink and head straight to the drawing room grates. The hallway carpet squishes faintly from the damp, an eternal issue in these old country houses where the walls breathe mist and the ceilings leak cold. Still, your breath clouds in front of you. The fireplace has gone out. Again. You kneel before it, scraping out yesterday's ashes, careful not to get soot on the hearth tiles. Those little orange and blue Victorian patterns might look lovely to a guest, but you know every one of them by name, by chip, by curse. uttered under your breath. You strike a match and coax the flame into life with the gentleness of a priest tending incense. If it doesn't catch, you'll be behind schedule, and behind schedule means no time for even the crust of toast that might be left by the under-butler. Once the fire is lit, you polish the brass fender and the hearth tools. You spit-shine the poker because the house polish has gone missing again, and no one wants to be the one to tell cook. You rise to your feet, knees aching already. Your fingers sting from both the cold and the chemicals. The next job is brass knobs. Doorknobs, bed frames, bell pulls. You polish until your reflection stares back. Pale, sleep-deprived, and already sweating. You're barely 16 and feel about 47. The hallway is waking now. Footsteps echo above as the gentry begin to stir. The butler clears his throat, his usual performance, before he floats up the main stair with the morning post. He nods at you just once, a grand honor in servant world. You nod back. Too much, and it looks cheeky. Then comes the part that never gets easier. Carrying up hot water for the basins. It sounds harmless, but those jugs are heavy steaming and have handles designed by sadists. You grip one in each hand and make your way up the back stair feet, slipping slightly on the worn wood. Historians still argue whether Edwardian servants were stronger out of necessity or endurance, but your arms have stopped asking. They just are. You pour carefully into porcelain basins, resisting the urge to sigh too loudly as the lady's maid glides in behind you and promptly pretends you don't exist. And then it happens. You pass an open door and for a fraction of a moment glimpse the master's dressing gown thrown casually over a chair. Silk, deep green, expensive. And there on the sideboard, toast butter and a silver coffee pot steaming gently. You haven't eaten. You won't eat for hours. You stare just a second too long. Move along. It's the under-butler, always catching you in the least flattering moment. You mumble an apology and carry on, feet like lead. Back downstairs, it's time to clean the boots. Ah, yes, the boots. They're lined up in the boot room like sleeping soldiers, hunting boots, riding boots, walking boots, house shoes. Each one with its own eccentricity. Some have names carved into the heel. One pair smells of lavender, Lady Margaret's idea, obviously. Another pair seems to possess its own fungus. You scrub, polish, buff, and shine, and pray that today is not the day the Viscount decides to go shooting and demand last-minute hobnails. Next, the fire tongs. It's an obscure little duty, but one the housekeeper insists on. All fire tongs must be aligned symmetrically on the hearth. Jaws closed, ash free. Why, you don't know. A clean tong makes a clear conscience, she says, quoting a proverb no one's ever verified or understood. The footman joins you now, late as usual, stinking faintly of pipe tobacco. He definitely doesn't have permission to smoke. He grins like he invented stairs and saunters past to flirt with the scullery maid. You envy his confidence and his job. He gets to stand around looking tidy while you carry 3 coal scuttles and try not to collapse. You wipe your face with the hem of your sleeve and realize with some horror that there's already a new smear of soot across your temple. You try to rub it off only to succeed in smudging it further. Classic. The upstairs bells begin to jingle. 1, 2, 5, 10. They tinkle down the wire board like the world's worst xylophone. Your shift is fully alive now. Still no food, no tea. Just the lingering scent of beeswax, polished coal dust, and your own determination. You think briefly of your cousin who went to work in a glove factory in Birmingham. Fewer stairs, more fingers lost. Pick your poison! You glance up at the servant's clock. It ticks in a judgy, almost smug way. It's only 7:45 Welcome to your Edwardian morning. You swing open the heavy oak door that separates the kitchen from the rest of the house and step into what is best described as another planet entirely. The kitchen in an Edwardian mansion isn't some cozy nook filled with scones and smiling cooks. It's a roaring battlefield of flame steam knives, shouting clanging, and the occasional airborne ladle. And at the center of it all, like a general surveying her troops, stands Cook. Cook doesn't have a first name, at least not to anyone who values their eyebrows. She's stout, formidable, and has the precision of a naval admiral. Her apron is always spotless, even as chaos erupts around her. She points with her wooden spoon like it's a royal scepter. You've never seen her blink. Where's the dripping? She bellows before you've even stepped in fully. You flinch instinctively. It's not your task, but the scullery girl is missing, probably hiding in the pantry again. So of course it falls to you. You rush over to the stone larder, dodging a boy carrying turnips the size of his head, and fetch the tin of beef drippings. It's heavier than it looks, and manages to smear your apron before you've taken 3 steps. Cook takes it without a word, which oddly enough feels like a victory. Historians still argue whether Edwardian kitchens ran on food or fear, and honestly, both seem plausible. The kitchen itself is a marvel of engineering. Miles of copper pans hang gleaming on racks, and a coal-fired range big enough to roast an entire hog simmers with authority. You glimpse rows of blancmanges wobbling like guilty secrets. Above them, a rack of herbs sways from the ceiling. Rosemary thyme a suspiciously crispy sprig of what might be last year's sage. Your job at the moment is humble. Peel potatoes, a mountain of them, possibly a cliff of them. Your fingers are already wrinkled and aching from the cold water in the wash tub, and you're only a dozen potatoes in when Cook shouts again. Not so deep. We're feeding them, not flaying them. You mumble an apology, though you're not sure if she hears it. Likely she does. Likely she files it away next to the time you oversalted the gravy. Never forgets. Never forgives. A small fire flares as someone opens the oven too fast. A kitchen maid shrieks. A wooden spoon clatters to the stone floor, and you, being the closest and most dispensable, bend to pick it up, only to be nearly bowled over by the arrival of the fishmonger's boy. He smells like salt and regret, and drops off a parcel of something that still has eyes. You don't look closely. Best not to. Over by the pastry table, someone is folding puff dough with surgical care. You envy them for a moment. There's artistry in their task. Yours, however, is increasingly potato-based. Did you wash the celery? Cook asks suddenly. You haven't. You were never told to. You point this out with caution. Her eyebrow lifts and she says only, "That's not what I asked." You flee to the sink. You wash the celery. 3 times. This is the kitchen's rhythm. Hurry up, don't speak. Anticipate, pray. Occasionally steal a cooling biscuit when no one's looking. Just don't get caught by the undercook. He's got the eyes of a hawk and the disposition of a tax auditor. You catch snippets of conversation, half gossip, half code. Did you hear about Lady Margaret's cousin? They say the underfootman dropped a whole bottle of sherry last Thursday. She fainted right into the blancmange. No one finishes stories. The bell always interrupts. There's a chalkboard in the kitchen with the day's menu written out in a slanting hand. Consommé, mutton with mint sauce, blancmange syllaboub. You can barely pronounce half of it, let alone taste it. Your food, when it comes, will be leavings and crusts, assuming they haven't gone cold. Then comes the aspic. Ah yes, aspic. For those fortunate enough never to have seen it. Imagine meat and vegetables suspended in wobbly, translucent jelly. It jiggles like something possessed. Cook has prepared an entire mold of it, and your task is to transport it carefully to the larder for chilling. You take the tray. You steady your hands. You walk slowly. You make it 5 steps before someone opens a door too fast and splat. The aspic hits the floor like a slap from the universe. Cold jelly bits of carrot and a very unfortunate piece of tongue now lay in a glistening heap at your feet. The kitchen falls silent. Cook turns. You swear even the fire pauses. She stares at the mess, then at you, then with terrifying calm. Clean it up and start another. You nod. You scrape. You survive. Hours pass like fog. Constant chill, a little hard to see through. You do 10 more tasks you won't remember by morning and 1 you probably won't forget. You peel your thumb slightly, trying to core a turnip. You wrap it quickly before anyone sees the blood. At last, Cook shouts, "That's enough. Go change." Breakfast's in 5. You nod, grateful and confused. 5 what? 5 minutes. 5 centuries. Doesn't matter. You're already running. You barely have time to grab a fresh apron and wipe the flour from your sleeves before the bells chime again. This time, the distinct 2-toned ding-ding of the master's dressing bell. The sound cuts through the house like a blade. You know what it means? Upstairs now and quickly. You take the back stair 2 steps at a time, breath tight, heart hammering not from nerves, but from the sheer physics of Edwardian service. These stairs were designed for function, not grace. Narrow, steep, and meant to keep you invisible. The air is warmer as you rise, filled with the scent of linen starch and a whiff of pipe tobacco. He's already up. The master's dressing room is a cavern of mahogany and velvet, gold piping on the drapes, a leather armchair that costs more than your annual wage. You step in silently, already holding the morning waistcoat freshly brushed and turned precisely so. He's reading the Times by the window in his monogrammed dressing gown. You don't speak unless spoken to. Too early for that one, he says, nodding at the deep crimson cravat you're holding. You swap it for the navy silk without comment. This is the daily ritual. Dressing the master isn't just about clothing. It's a performance. You assist with cufflinks, straighten the collar, present. The shoes brown for countryside breakfast, black for city business. Miss one stud and he might say nothing, but his silence will trail you all day like fog. Historians still debate whether valets and dressers were considered high-ranking staff or merely tolerated help, and you're starting to understand why. You're not high enough to have power, but you're close enough to notice things. Intimate things. Like how he always stiffens before reading a letter from his brother, or how he leaves the second button undone when he's about to argue with Lady Margaret. You finish the shoes with a soft cloth kneeling on the rug. It's Turkish. You know because he once mentioned it absently to a guest, and you naturally were invisible in the corner holding his coat. He glances at the mirror and gives a nod. That's your cue. You vanish before he changes his mind. Next, the children. Oh, the children! They're already up shrieking like miniature banshees down the hallway. You wince as one of them swings a wooden sword dangerously close to a marble vase. Beasts in lace, the parlor maid once called them. You're inclined to agree. You catch Master Albie trying to slide down the banister again and gently redirect him. He scowls at you in a way that suggests he will one day be exactly like his father. You help the governess wrangle them into something vaguely resembling order. Socks are never matching. Ribbons are always missing. There's jam where no jam should ever be. Lady Margaret wants them looking presentable. The governess mutters through clenched teeth as she pins another rogue curl. You assist with brushing, smoothing, bribing with peppermints. It's nearly time for the family's breakfast. Downstairs, cook is already yelling that the kippers are overdone and the toast underdone. You dart through the back corridor to the butler's pantry to fetch the silver egg domes. They're hot. They always are. You juggle them with a folded tea towel and head for the breakfast room. The transition between downstairs servant and upstairs phantom is sudden. You push open the door with your shoulder and enter calm, quiet, and poised. The family sits in near silence. Lady Margaret stirs her tea pinky raised just so. The master reads the paper frowning. The children fidget while trying to butter crumpets without smearing jam on their cuffs. You serve wordlessly, domes lifted in one smooth motion. You glide. Do not speak. Do not stumble. Do not under any circumstance drop anything. And yet, because this house is a haunted carnival of minor disasters, you nearly trip on the rug edge by the fire grate. The silver spoon on the side plate rattles. Everyone looks. Just for a second. Just enough for you to sweat. But no one says anything. You continue. You breathe again once you're out of the room. You return the now empty serving trolley to the hallway and lean against the wall for just 1 second. One breath. Then you're off again, because now it's time for the dressing rooms, the laundry, the corridors that seem to stretch into infinity. You haven't even eaten. You won't for another 2 hours. Someone hands you a list. You haven't looked at it yet, but it's probably another 5 miles of errands and reminders that you don't exist unless you've done something wrong. Still you smile, because somehow in this strange ballet of silence and soot and silver you're getting good at it. And because between us you did pick the right cravat. The scent of burnt toast is still clinging to your apron as you scurry back downstairs through the servant's door that clicks behind you like a whispering reminder. You do not belong on the other side. Not really. You've missed the breakfast bell for the staff, of course. Everyone's already crammed into the servants' hall at the long dented table, and what's left for you is a wedge of toast slightly singed and a corner of jam that's mysteriously gritty. You chew without complaint. Hunger makes everything taste faintly of gratitude. Around you, the kitchen boy slurps tea too loudly. The tweeny short for between maid nods off in her porridge. The footman is waxing poetic about a pair of gloves Lady Margaret left on a chair. They were kid leather, he says dreamily. You resist the urge to roll your eyes. Historians still argue whether the servants' hall was a haven or a holding pen, but to you, it's simply a pause in the storm. You eat as quickly as dignity allows. You need the calories. Upstairs, the family finishes their breakfast in much more refined silence. Real silver cutlery, embroidered linen napkins, tea that doesn't taste of the tin it was stored in. You'll soon be clearing their plates, noting which dishes came back untouched. Cook will take it personally. She always does. You drain your tin cup of tea, lukewarm and gritty. Then the bell rings again. Time for service. You brush crumbs from your apron, straighten your back, and return to the corridor like a ghost rehearsing an entrance. The dining room must be cleared and fast. The family is moving to the morning room, and that leaves exactly 6 minutes to transform their wreckage into polished calm. You step into the room and survey the battlefield. Half-eaten eggs smeared butter coffee rings on the linen, and someone, probably Master Albie, has used his knife to scratch a small sword into the soft wood of the table. You sigh. Silver first. Always. You gather forks and spoons with practiced grace, sorting them into the tray in the precise order the butler demands. Heaven help you if you mix the dessert spoons with the teaspoons again. The memory of that lecture still lingers in your left ear. Next comes the linen whisked away, folded just so, even when stained. You'll soak it later back in the laundry room where steam blurs the walls and the smell of bleach clings to your hair for days. As you polish the sideboard, your mind drifts for a moment. You imagine a world where you sit at the breakfast table reading the Times, asking someone else for more jam. But that's a dangerous kind of daydreaming, the sort that gets you smacked with a wooden spoon by Cook, or earns you the butler's chilling reminder, eyes down, mind on, so you snap out of it. There's a knock at the window. A delivery boy, muddy from the road, stands with a box of something wrapped in twine. You take it carefully and nod once. No conversation. Delivery boys are considered even lower than you. You bring the package to the kitchen where Cook eyes it like it might explode. About time, she mutters before barking out orders about icing the fish and checking the root cellar for soft turnips. You manage to slip away briefly 5 whole minutes in the scullery, which is your only semi-private haven. It's small, damp, and smells vaguely of onions, but it's where you catch your breath. You lean against the wall, the cold stone pressing into your back. The scullery maid passes you a crusty heel of bread she saved. You thank her with your eyes. Words are too risky. Someone's always listening. That's the thing. No one tells you about servant life. There's nowhere to be alone. Not really. You're always under someone's eye, be it the butler cook or the ever-watchful housekeeper who can sense slouching through 3 floors. You hear the bell again? 1 chime. It's the morning room. You curse softly, too tired for refinement, and bolt upright. You retie your apron, dab a bit of water behind your ears to smooth your hair, and set off down the corridor with a silver tray in hand. The morning room is all sunlight and lace curtains. Lady Margaret is embroidering something that looks suspiciously like a cushion she's already finished twice. She doesn't look up. Her sister, visiting from Bath, requests another cup of tea, but strong, dear. Not like last time. You nod. You don't speak. You back out of the room with the practiced grace of a magician vanishing into curtains. Back in the kitchen, you remake the tea. Strong. No sugar. The right china. You carry it back, perfectly balanced, heart pounding as you lower it to the side table without a tremble. A single clink of porcelain against porcelain. You freeze, but Lady Margaret doesn't react. Success. You walk out backward. Nod to the hall boy who's just arrived with a scuffed boot and a complaint, and head to the side corridor for your next task, which is dusting. Again, always dusting. Historians often overlook the war waged against Edwardian dust, but in truth, it's your most persistent adversary. It clings to every cornice, every velvet curtain, every carved chair leg like a stubborn ghost. You lift the duster and begin. Swish flick, don't sneeze. There are still 11 hours left in your shift. You move from room to room like a whisper duster in hand, trailing just behind the golden sunlight that streams through the upper windows. Dust floats in the beams like tiny ghosts, endless, weightless, and maddeningly persistent. You swipe the mantle. Swish. You flick under the lace-trimmed table runner. Flick. You rub the legs of the escritoire, careful not to jostle the little porcelain swans. Each room has its own personality, and each one has its quirks. And dirt. Always the dirt. You hate the drawing room the most. It's a beast of brocade and unnecessary furniture. Velvet settees that trap hair and lint. Gold leaf side tables that smudge if you so much as breathe on them. A taxidermy fox that stares accusingly no matter where you stand. You avoid its glassy eyes as you dust the piano, where Lady Margaret once played exactly half of a Chopin nocturne before declaring she was too emotionally fatigued. You clean her stool anyway. Just as you're tucking in the corner of a slipcover, you hear footsteps behind you. The butler, again. His shoes make no sound, but his presence is louder than a thunderclap. He watches as you straighten a vase. No words, just that sharp intake of breath he does when he's mentally deducting imaginary points. You nod. He nods. You both move on. Historians still debate whether housework was seen as noble or degrading for domestic servants, and honestly, it depends on who's watching. When no one's around, you find strange comfort in the repetition. There's rhythm to it, ritual, like praying with your hands. Next comes linen duty. The laundry maid is behind schedule again, so the housekeeper sends you to the airing room. It's hotter than the kitchen and smells of iron soap and mildew. The drying racks sag with damp sheets. You gather the half-dry tablecloths, your arms wrapping around piles of embroidered edges, and carry them to the pressing table. You iron like you're performing surgery, slow, steady strokes, releasing the steam with each pass. Your back aches, your sleeves dampen, and the iron is heavy. Cast iron naturally. It holds heat like a grudge. There's one particularly ornery tablecloth with a crease that laughs at your every attempt to flatten it. You swear under your breath. The housekeeper walks in just in time to hear it. Language, she warns, eyes narrowing. You nod, mouth shut. You iron harder. When that's done, you drag a basket of mended linen back up 2 floors to the guest wing, each item folded precisely with corners aligned like military ranks. You're balancing the stack as you round a corner when the footman nearly collides with you. He makes a dramatic leap back, as though you nearly murdered him with doilies. Careful, darling. He grins smug as ever before winking and vanishing down the corridor. You sigh and adjust the load. Upstairs, you place the clean linen in the airing cupboard. It's warm in here, almost too warm. You let yourself lean against the door for just a moment, stealing heat and rest in equal measure. Then someone calls down the corridor. It's her, Lady Margaret's maid. The one who only ever calls you by the wrong name. Anna, no Annie. Yes, you whatever it is. Her ladyship's blouse needs steaming again. You'll find it on the second peg, and don't ruin the lace like last time. You don't correct her. You just nod and fetch the blouse. It's barely wrinkled. But that's not the point. You carry it back to the kitchen level and place it over the steaming frame. You wait watching the vapors rise like a genie from a lamp, wondering what it would be like to command a bit of magic. Just once. The blouse steams perfectly. You don't ruin the lace. You deliver it back hanging just so, avoiding her disapproving glance by focusing on the doorknob. Then, bell chime. One short, one long. The library. You groan internally. The library is Lord Henry's domain, a man who owns more books than he's read and more pipes than he smokes. The shelves are endless, dust pools in the corners of the Persian rug. He insists the fire be lit even in summer. You kneel open the iron grate and coax the flame into life. Your knuckles bump into a rogue coal and you bite your tongue hard enough to taste regret. When the fire catches, the room smells of old paper and pine tar. You like this smell? You don't admit it out loud. You dust the desk, careful around the inkwell and the magnifying glass he never uses. On the wall, there's a portrait of his grandfather glaring eternally. You tiptoe out as the old man in the painting seems to follow your every move. You've cleaned, pressed, dusted, steamed, fluffed, straightened, and hauled more than most people do in a week. It's now barely 11. So, there's still the whole afternoon to come. And yes, you still haven't had a full meal. You descend the back staircase again. Legs already stiff, apron damp at the hem, and a faint smell of starch clinging to your sleeves. It's time to assist the lady's maid. You could lie and say you're not dreading it, but you'd only be lying to yourself. She's in the dressing room already, fluttering about like a wasp in lace, swishing from drawer to wardrobe to vanity in a whirlwind of clinks and sighs. She doesn't look up when you arrive. She never does. She just says, "Took you long enough," before tossing a blouse toward you that barely misses your face. The blouse isn't wrinkled. Not really. But she'll find fault in it anyway. You smooth it over your arm and begin folding it with care. "You'll need to redo the hem," she says flatly, tapping a jar of face cream. Lady Margaret says it feels uneven when she walks. "And fetch the powder box, will you?" You fetch it. You always fetch it. The lady's maid is technically not your superior, but don't tell her that. She acts as though the house were built around her, and that the rest of you are simply dust motes orbiting her brilliance. You would say something clever in your head, but she's one of those uncanny people who seems to know when you're thinking sarcastic thoughts. You iron the hem anyway, while she curls ribbons into Lady Margaret's hats, with all the gravity of a wartime general planning a campaign. You slip into the closet to fetch gloves, then polish a silver-backed hairbrush until it glows. The maid sighs deeply. You know, in Paris, girls train for months before they even touch silk. You wonder how long it would take her to last in the scullery. Historians still debate whether ladies' maids were glorified assistants or strategic spies, and you'd believe either. This one seems to know everything. She once mentioned a house guest's scandalous trip to Monte Carlo before the guest had even arrived. After steaming another petticoat the third this morning and repressing a sash that was too crisp, she finally waves you away. "Don't wrinkle your face so much," she says. "It'll age you by 30. You walk out jaw clenched, wondering how exactly to wrinkle your face less, while also carrying half the household on your back. Down the corridor, you pass one of the younger maids, red-cheeked and dragging a mop. She gives you a sympathetic look. You respond with a one-sided smile and press on. You've just started toward the servants' staircase again, when a squeal echoes from the playroom. The children. You hesitate. This isn't your post right now, but the sound is unmistakable. Something just broke. You rush in to find Master Albie standing guiltily over a shattered vase. A cricket bat rests innocently at his side. His younger sister barefoot watches with gleeful terror. "Don't tell," he says quickly, eyes wide. You kneel beside the mess, sweeping up porcelain with your apron's edge. He's a child, sure, but he's also the future of the estate. That makes him dangerous. You nod. "You say nothing?" The governess sweeps in moments later, hissing through her teeth. "What happened here?" You straighten, holding the shards in your hands. Albie is silent. You sigh. "I bumped it while dusting, ma'am," you say softly. The governess narrows her eyes. "Clumsy." You nod again. She leaves. The children scatter. You toss the pieces in the coal scuttle when no one's looking. No one ever thanks you for these little sacrifices, but they accumulate like invisible medals. As you return to the hallway, your stomach growls loudly. You pass a tray of tea things left temporarily on a sideboard. There's a half-eaten biscuit. You glance over your shoulder. Then you swipe it and devour it in 2 bites. Victory. Back in the laundry passage, the footman appears again. "Lady Margaret needs her parasol cleaned," he says, holding it at arm's length like it's something diseased. "Of course she does." You take it. It smells faintly of perfume and rain. As you open it near the garden door to dry it out, you pause for just a second, your eyes catching the late morning light over the hedges. The grounds are sprawling, trimmed within an inch of their life green and symmetrical, and utterly forbidden. You've never walked those gravel paths without a tray in your hands or shoes that pinch. You exhale, adjust your posture, and return to the hall. The parasol is drying. The blouse is steamed. The vase is gone. The biscuit is gone. The day drags on. And somewhere upstairs, someone is already wondering what's taking you so long. The bell rings again. It's the third-floor corridor, one of the guest bedrooms. You trudge back up the staircase, your knees giving the slightest protest now, as if even your joints are starting to learn sarcasm. You adjust your cap, smooth your apron, and put on your best. Yes, I'm delighted to serve you expression. The guest room smells like lavender water and overcooked perfume. Inside, a visitor, a Miss Templeton from Bath, is rifling through a trunk that seems to contain more silk than scents. You announce yourself with a gentle knock. "Oh, good," she says, "as if you've taken too long, even though no one called for you until now. My slipper is missing. The left one, blue velvet. It was right here. It is in fact directly under the bed." You retrieve it without comment, brushing away a cobweb as you do. Well, she sniffs. Someone should clean under there. You smile politely and resist the urge to ask who she thinks does that. As you're backing out of the room, careful not to step on the edge of the rug, the mirror catches your eye. For a fleeting second, you see yourself, truly see yourself. Hair fraying at the edges, cheeks smudged with soot. A little pale, a little ghostly. The kind of person that moves through rooms like wind through a cracked window. Always there, never seen. It jars you more than it should. You return to the hallway and nearly collide with the youngest son, Harold, who's galloping around the corner with a wooden sword and zero concern for your spine. Out of the way. He shrieks, playing at battle with invisible foes. You flatten yourself against the wall as he barrels past. Behind him, the nursery maid trails in frustration, clutching a dropped stocking and muttering about sugar highs and bad parenting. You duck into the corner cabinet to fetch a polishing cloth and notice a small drawing on the wall hidden behind the doorframe. A child's sketch, probably Albie's. A servant with X's for eyes and no talking scrawled over it. You laugh. Just a small dry sound, but it's a laugh nonetheless. Historians still argue whether the children of Edwardian elites were sweet little cherubs or well-dressed gremlins. You have a strong opinion. Back downstairs, the parlor maid grabs your arm. Lady Margaret's lunch is being served in the garden. You blink. In the garden? She nods, exasperated. She wants it under the sycamore. Fresh air is good for the complexion, apparently. So now you're helping carry trays and silver and napkins and that infernal tea cart over gravel that seems designed to trip ankles. You move like a tightrope walker, balancing bone china in one hand and a glass decanter in the other. The garden is exquisite. Symmetrical hedges, a marble fountain, and flower beds arranged so precisely it's unsettling. Lady Margaret lounges on a wicker chair, a parasol tilted just so, like a human sculpture titled Refined Discontent. She's fanning herself while staring blankly at a plate of salad she won't eat. You serve, you step back, then you wait, standing quietly like a shadow with hands folded at your waist, trying not to lock your knees. Bees buzz lazily nearby. A pigeon flutters overhead. You imagine it pooping on the silver platter and instantly wish for it. Just a little chaos, just enough to matter. After what feels like 20 years, the lunch is over. She nods once and you begin the silent retreat, gathering cutlery, folding the napkin that somehow fell on the grass, wheeling the cart back over the gravel path that hates you. You're halfway to the house when you pass one of the gardeners. He nods in greeting. A real one. Not the upstairs nods or servant glances. Just a man with dirt under his nails and sunburn on his neck saying hello. It warms you more than the sun. Inside, the hallway feels suddenly cold again. The dining room needs clearing. Again. The linen must be refreshed. Again. And yes, someone has misplaced the mustard spoon. Again. You push through. You hear the murmuring of voices behind closed drawing room doors. You hear the tinkle of piano keys. You hear the unmistakable sound of the under-butler berating the kitchen boy for breathing too loudly. You pass a sideboard mirror again. You catch your reflection again. But this time, instead of a pale wisp, you see something else. Someone capable. You've survived half the day. You've avoided blame for a broken vase. You've balanced tea over gravel and steamed lace without burning it. You've gone unnoticed, which ironically is how you know you did well. You smile just barely at your own reflection. Then you keep walking. You have 5 minutes before the bell rings again. The town run comes after lunch. which is cruel because you've barely had a mouthful yourself, and now you're being handed a shopping list longer than a Dickens novel. Cook shoves the folded paper into your hand and barks. No bruised apples this time. The fishmonger's off, go to Perkins. And mind your feet on the cobbles. I won't be explaining another broken plate to his lordship. You nod, pocket the coins she drops in your palm like you're a defective purse, and set out. The house gates loom behind you as you step into town, a threshold crossed but not quite freedom. You're still in uniform. You're still carrying a basket. You're still not your own person, just a representative of the estate with aching feet and a mental map of every shop from the butcher's to the apothecary. The road is uneven. Horse droppings decorate the lane like tragic confetti. You sidestep a fresh pile with the grace of someone who's made this walk 100 times. You're not alone out here. A pair of kitchen maids from the neighboring manor are also on errands. You nod as you pass, but don't stop. Chatting in public is frowned upon, unless of course you're a footman. Then you can flirt, whistle, or loiter with the full blessing of social structure. The bakery's your first stop. It smells divine sugar cinnamon and an almost sinful warmth. You order the rolls. Cook wants, plus a tiny extra one you pay for yourself with a secret coin you've kept tucked in your shoe lining for weeks. It's slightly squashed. You love it anyway. You hide it in your apron. Then it's on to Perkins the fishmonger. The man himself is cheerful in a way that's frankly suspicious. "Ah, for the manor again, is it?" he asks. "Tell Cook I'll have the oysters fresh on Thursday." You nod. You will forget, probably on purpose. Next comes the grocer, then the apothecary. You pick up salts for Lady Margaret, who insists they help with her nervous vapors, and a packet of dried thyme that smells like the best parts of autumn. The butcher, as always, is the worst. He leers. He calls you pet. You keep your chin down and your answers short. He wraps the cutlets in brown paper and makes a joke about lucky Lord Henry. You leave without smiling. Historians still argue whether errands were considered light relief or humiliating exposure, and today, it feels like both. You enjoy the breeze, the movement, the faint illusion of freedom. But you also know the looks people give you, the baker's assistant who won't meet your eye, the boy who openly stares, the old woman who clutches her handbag like you're about to nick it. You adjust the basket on your hip and keep walking. Outside the cobbler's, you pause to retie your shoe. Your fingers are swollen and your nails still bear a crescent of soot. You wonder what they'd look like if you ever had time for a bath that didn't double as laundry. A dog barks behind a fence. The sky has that hazy, watery sun that promises nothing. You pass a bookshop. You slow for half a second. The window display is full of novels with titles like A Daring Duchess and The Moorland Secret. You want to read them all? You don't go in. You wouldn't be welcome not in uniform, not with your boots scuffed and your hair pinned too hastily. You carry on. Back at the estate gates, the weight of the basket feels heavier than it did on the way out. Your shoulders ache. Your lower back mutters threats. You ring the bell. The hall boy opens the gate with a smirk, like you've been off gallivanting at the theater. "You're late," he says. You are not. You know you're not. But you say nothing because arguing downward in the servant hierarchy is how wars begin. Inside, Cook grabs the basket and mutters, "About time," without a glance. The kitchen bursts into activity, chopping, rinsing, weighing. You're dismissed with a flick of her spoon. You head for the scullery. The warm brick floor is almost comforting. You finally retrieve your squashed secret bun and sit on a low stool near the slop sink. For 3 whole minutes you do nothing but eat. Chew, breathe. The bun is stale. It is perfect. Then you hear it, the soft clatter of approaching shoes. You tuck the paper away, wipe your hands, and stand just in time for the underbutler to appear. Lady Margaret's handkerchiefs are missing again. She wants her drawer sorted by 3. Of course she does. You nod, grab a laundry basket, and begin the climb back upstairs. Again, the world shrinks to this rhythm. Up, down, fetch, polish, smile, disappear. But out there in the town, you saw a glimpse of something else. A world with bookshops, with bakery warmth, with people who didn't look past you. It wasn't freedom, not really, but it was close enough to remember. You slip into the scullery again after delivering the handkerchiefs. The drawer was naturally perfectly fine before, but you rearranged every square inch anyway, as Lady Margaret's idea of order is a puzzle no mortal mind can solve. All lace edges forward, hand-stitched initials visible, folded into a pattern that seems to change weekly. It's late afternoon now. The sun filters through the high windows in soft angles, and the scullery is quiet for once. You sit on a crate next to the copper sink, elbows on your knees, watching steam rise from a boiling pot. You don't even mind the smell of soap this time. It's warm. It's quiet. It's yours for maybe 5 minutes. And then, the quietest noise you've longed for all day. A teacup being gently set down. You turn, and there she is, the kitchen maid, smiling like a co-conspirator. 10 minutes, she whispers. If we're fast. It's the closest thing to a sacred ritual you have. Stolen tea shared behind the drying cloths. A chipped cup for each of you. No sugar today, but someone's filched a biscuit tin from the back of the pantry. Inside, 2 broken shortbreads and something that might have once been a raisin. Heaven. You sip. Silence. Then, gossip. Did you hear about the footman? She asks, eyes glinting. The tall one, George. You raise an eyebrow. Mrs. Gibbons says he was caught in the stables after supper. With the stable girl. You snort softly. Not the cook's niece. Worse, she grins. The vicar's niece. You nearly choke on your tea. Historians rarely mention the underground web of servant gossip, you think. But it's the real nervous system of a household. Every maid, hall boy, and boot polisher knows more about the family's secrets than the family does themselves. And nobody forgets anything. The scullery girl leans in. Also, guess who's getting new shoes? You blink. No. The cat. You both stare at each other, then burst into stifled laughter. The cat lady. Margaret's pampered Persian is famously evil, and already owns more ribbon than any maid. New shoes are a war crime. Supposed to wear them for the garden party. You're halfway through your last sip when the gong sounds. Not the bell. The gong. Dinner service looms. Your moment vanishes like steam off the stove. You rinse your cup quickly and return it to the hidden corner shelf. She stashes the tin. You both smooth your aprons and file back into motion. The great machine is churning again. The butler appears in the corridor like a summons. Dining room now, he says, eyes flicking over your shoulder to check for lint or crumbs. You pass. Dinner service is the grand theater of the house. It begins with preparation, polishing the silver until it blinds you, folding napkins into grotesque swans, decanting wine into carafes, while pretending not to smell how very French it is. The table must look like the showroom of a porcelain merchant, perfect symmetry, impossible elegance, and absolutely no fingerprints. The family descends in layers of silk and smugness. Lady Margaret wears something taffeta and glinting. Lord Henry looks like he just stepped off a fox hunt, which he very well might have. Guests are present tonight, Sir Roger from Yorkshire, and a woman with a laugh like a goat's sneeze. You take your position against the wall, hands clasped behind your back. The dining room is warm with candlelight and rich with smells you won't be allowed to taste. Roast duck, truffle sauce, fresh rolls in linen-lined baskets. You wait for the butler's nod. Then, you serve. First course, bread and butter. Soup poured from the left carefully without sloshing. You move like a ghost through a ritual older than you. The dining room has seen hundreds like you. It remembers the silent ones. Lady Margaret drops her spoon. It clatters against her plate. She looks at it like it betrayed her. Replace it, the butler whispers behind you. You do seamlessly. Historians still argue whether dinner was more for eating or impressing, but from where you're standing, it's definitely the latter. Half the guests aren't even finishing their food. They're too busy dissecting scandal and pretending to care about politics. Someone laughs, loudly. You flinch. Someone else knocks over a wine glass. You swoop in with a cloth before the stain can even think about settling. The guest waves a hand like you're a curtain. You don't take it personally. That's rule 1. You're clearing the third course when a whisper trails across the table. So Margaret, will the staff be performing again this Christmas? You freeze. Performing. As if you're actors on a stage. As if this isn't already performance. Lady Margaret tuts. We'll see. Last year's recital was enthusiastic. You pretend not to hear. After the final course, cheese and fruit, the guests retreat to the drawing room, leaving behind crumpled napkins and glasses marked by careless fingerprints. The dining room smells like vanilla and wine now. The candles are shorter. The illusion is over. You and the rest of the staff clear it all, swiftly, silently, as if it never happened. The food scraps go to the lower kitchen. The tablecloth will be soaked tonight. The silver will be polished again tomorrow. You scrub at a wine ring on the sideboard and hear the footman behind you murmur, "Think they'll ask us to sing again this year." You sigh, "Only if we're very unlucky." He laughs, and for a second it almost feels like companionship. Then the butler clears his throat. Laughter vanishes. The tray is full again, and the clock says it's barely 8. Srozropi. You haul the tray of wine glasses to the scullery arms, shaking slightly from the awkward angle. It's not the weight, it's the repetition. You've carried a dozen trays tonight, and now comes the worst part. Late-night dishes. The scullery is already thick with steam. A basin bubbles on the iron stove, hissing gently. Damp towels hang from every hook. The floor is slick beneath your shoes. A mixture of soap heat and whatever mystery grease clings to porcelain like a memory. The scullery maid is elbow deep in suds, face-flushed hair damp with sweat. She doesn't look up. You take the knives. You do. Of course you do. They go first always. Before the silver, before the crystal. Wash, rinse, dry polish. Handle them wrong and they'll rust. Handle them too slowly and you'll hear about it. The knives are slippery in your hands, and more than once you pause to shake out your fingers, trying to bring back feeling in your wrists. One slips, nearly slicing your palm. You catch it midair with a gasp. The maid glances over. "You all right?" You nod. "Near miss." She doesn't smile. Just says, "Could have been worse." That's the master's carving set. As if the cut to your hand would matter less than a scratch to the silver. You keep working. The rhythm sets in again. Scrub dip swipe place, forks with forks, spoons nested like sleeping mice, goblets lined like soldiers on a towel. The plates are heavier now, grease congealed, sauce dried. Every scrape of the dish brush feels like it comes from your own bones. Historians still argue whether Edwardian kitchens were more efficient or more brutal, and it's easy to see how they'd reach either conclusion. The work gets done, but at what cost? As you reach for the next pot, the scullery maid starts humming. It's low, tuneless, probably some lullaby her grandmother sang in a mining village. You recognize it. You've never asked her name. Somehow that feels both strange and perfectly normal. You murmur a verse back. She smiles this time. Not big, just enough. From the corridor, someone drops a pan. The clang echoes like a cannon. Then comes the hush, because now it's night hours. And the mansion feels different when the gentry retreat. The grand rooms dim. The piano goes quiet. Footsteps soften. Voices hush. Lamps glow with a gentler flame. It's as though the house exhales after holding its breath all day. Your hands are cracked now. Your nails feel like they've shrunk. But the dishes are done. Finally. You take a moment to rinse your arms in cool water. You dare to lean against the brick wall. A flickering oil lamp buzzes overhead. 10 minutes, the scullery maid whispers again. It becomes your secret code. Out in the hallway, the night shift begins. The younger hall boy will guard the bellboard until morning. The footman stalks around like he owns the corridors, but even he is slower now. Less bravado, just survival. You pass the still room and spot the kitchen maid cutting lemon peel for some concoction. Lady Margaret will probably forget she requested. You raise an eyebrow. She replies, "She wants it with her bath tomorrow." Of course. You glance at the ledger she's writing in. Orders, ingredients, notes. A symphony of control in Cook's sharp handwriting. Each line is precise. Each page a record of labor that won't be seen, only tasted. You move on. Past the flower room where tomorrow's arrangements already sit in buckets, waiting to be sculpted. Past the boot room where the mud has dried on a pair of riding shoes. Past the larder, cool and silent shelves, groaning with preserves you've never once sampled. You pause outside the servants' hall. Inside, 2 of the parlor maids are whispering stories, one about a ghost in the nursery wing. You listen from the corridor, grinning as she claims she heard a lullaby in an empty room. Historians still debate whether servants believed in ghosts or just needed them. And maybe both are true. When you're invisible most of the time, it's easy to believe in other things that walk through walls. Someone calls your name. The housekeeper. Of course. There's a coal bin that needs refilling for morning fires. You nod, wipe your hands on your apron, and grab the scuttle. The coal room is quiet. It smells like dust and earth and time. You shovel quickly but carefully. Coal dust sticks to your cheeks, your teeth, your soul. When the bin's full, you drag it back through the hall with both hands. No one notices. But if it wasn't done, oh, then everyone would... You return the shovel. You wash your hands. You let yourself sag a little as the house falls deeper into silence. 1 more hour and you can sleep. Unless the bell rings. It might. It probably will. But for now, in the dim hum of oil lamps and lemon-scented air, the house is quieter than it's been all day. And for just a moment, so are you. By now, the linen room is quiet, eerily so. You're here on a last-minute request from the housekeeper, who despite the hour seems more alert than anyone should be after 16 hours of barking orders. She handed you a note with Lady Margaret's script on it. Refold all monogrammed pillowcases. The left seams feel bulky. Suggest replacing 4. You almost laughed. Almost. Now you're kneeling on the floor beside the linen shelves, surrounded by stacks of perfectly fine pillowcases, smoothing each one on the long table under the glow of a flickering gas sconce. The fabric is soft from use, nearly see-through in spots, but every letter embroidered M is intact. You fold and refold again. The silence makes your thoughts louder. You think of the other maids. You wonder what they're doing now, if the scullery girl is scrubbing out the copper sinks, if the tweenie is finally allowed to nap, if the cook is still muttering to herself in the kitchen while counting potatoes and vendettas. You stifle a yawn and crack your knuckles. They ache. The house beyond is shifting into its night skin. The gentry have gone to their drawing rooms or their beds. The great clocks tick slower, or maybe it just feels that way. Footsteps are fewer. Lamps burn lower. The bells ring less often, though, never not at all. You finish the pillowcases? All 36 of them, left seams perfectly aligned. You set aside 4 slightly puffier ones, knowing full well they'll be replaced with new linens that cost more than your yearly wages. Historians still debate whether attention to detail was a point of pride or a weapon in Edwardian service, and as you fold the final case into a brutal square of perfect corners, it feels like both. The air in the linen room is warm and heavy. You think just for a second about curling up between the shelves. Just for 5 minutes. You don't. The hallway outside is dim. The lamp flickers again as you pass the laundry stairs. A creak, probably the footman pacing. Maybe the cat. Or maybe the ghost the parlor maids swear lives in the nursery hallway. You pause at the drawing room door. You can hear them. The family, still awake. Laughter, low voices. The piano. They're discussing something light and aimless, whether Lord Henry's uncle should buy another yacht, or if Lady Margaret's cousin has finally married the Hungarian baron. It floats out like perfume, rich, meaningless, unreachable. You step away. Your job now is the drawing room hearth. You kneel in the corridor, open the small vent door beside the wall, and adjust the iron flap from behind so the fire won't go out overnight. No one ever sees this task happen, but if the room's cold in the morning, you'll hear about it. Back in the staff corridor, the atmosphere is different. The butler is no longer striding. He's gliding now, all edges smoothed by exhaustion. The parlor maids are untucking their aprons. Even cook, if you peek toward the kitchen, is leaning back in her chair, glasses perched low on her nose, reviewing tomorrow's lists in the flickering candlelight. This is what the mansion looks like half asleep. You return to the scullery to check the water taps are off. You towel off a plate left soaking and hang the cloth on the rack. These are the rituals before bed, the unspoken rules. And yet, you're called back. Of course you are. It's the butler this time. Drawing room. You're needed. You nod, already turning. The master has left a glass on the mantel. It's not your role to fetch it, but someone didn't, and now it's your responsibility. You walk in quietly, not looking at anyone, retrieve it, and bow slightly. The master doesn't speak, just glances. Lady Margaret says nothing. You back out like a ghost. In the hallway, the housekeeper passes you a rag. You'll need to wipe down the banisters before bed. The children smudge them again. It's always again. You take the rag. You polish the banisters. You think about the last time your hands weren't busy. Somewhere behind you, a grandfather clock chimes once. Midnight. Technically, your shift should end now, but time, like food and sleep, isn't always available when you need it. You check the side corridor for stray trays. You fluff the cushion on the settee near the front parlor. You relight the night lamp by the stair whose wick burns too low unless pinched just right. And finally, you descend back into the lower hallway where the servants' bedrooms wait behind plain doors. You pass the bellboard. The lights are dark. For now, the corridor outside your room is quiet finally. You hear only the low hum of the wind rattling a casement window and the faint shifting of other servants murmuring or coughing behind their own narrow doors. You pause at yours, hand on the knob, and allow yourself a single deep breath. Inside, a cell. No, that's too generous. It's barely wider than the bed. A rough wool blanket stretched tight across a sagging mattress. The pillow is flat, the sheets are thin, and the walls still smell faintly of coal smoke and starch. One cracked jug of water sits beside a chipped enamel basin. Your name penciled in. Light faded handwriting is still scrawled on the underside of the bed frame. You hang your apron on the hook and sit on the edge of the mattress. Just for a moment, you want to lie down to close your eyes to let go. But you can't not yet. You pull off your shoes. The soles are worn nearly through. Your right sock has a hole in the toe that's grown just a little bigger each week. You'll have to mend it again. Maybe tomorrow, maybe not. You lift your feet, tuck them beneath the blanket, and allow yourself to lie back. The room creaks. You exhale. The mattress groans beneath you. You stare at the ceiling. Then, ding, a bell. Not loud, but not ignorable. You sit up. You know the sound. Guest corridor. You swing your feet back down. No time for shoes. Just slippers worn and soft, and the apron again wrinkled from where you just hung it. You don't bother to button it this time. The corridor is colder now. The lamps are lower. You follow the hall past closed doors, past whispered dreams and aching limbs and everything you haven't said aloud. You reach the guest room. The visitor, a different cousin this time, has dropped their glove. That's all. They ask if someone can send it to be cleaned before breakfast. You nod. You retreat, back through the corridor, back past the snoring of the hall boy, past the bellboard, past the dining room where the last embers still flicker. You place the glove in the linen bin, note it on the laundry slate, and finally return to your room. Historians still argue whether night interruptions were an accepted sacrifice or institutional cruelty, but to you, it's just a normal Tuesday. You lie back down, this time slower. Your body sinks into the mattress like a stone into mud. Your spine aches. Your arms twitch. Your feet burn with that deep, bone-sunk tiredness only people on their feet all day understand. But you're here, in the dark, in silence. For now, and that somehow feels enough. Then you hear it. From the next room, the scullery girl's soft voice barely audible through the wall. She's humming again. The same tune from earlier, low, off-key, comforting. You don't join in. You don't even smile. But you let the tune carry you just far enough from the ache in your hips and the smudge behind your ear and the glove still damp from someone else's perfume. You let it lull you, almost, until the clock in the hall chimes again. 1, 2, you're still awake. Sleep doesn't come easily when you're always half listening for the next bell. It's nearly 2. Soda. Now, you don't remember falling asleep, only waking up half suspended between dream and duty. A thud in the corridor, maybe a shutter banging, maybe a rat in the coal bin, maybe your own imagination wired after 17 hours of movement and muttering. You sit up. For a moment, you consider staying in bed, but your body has been trained better than that. You pull on your apron again, not for anyone specific, not because the bell rang, but because it might. And you'd rather be ready than rushed. The corridor outside is silent. Too silent. You tiptoe past the sleeping rooms of the other staff. A snore escapes from the footman's quarters, deep and unrepentant. Someone coughs harsh and tired. A candle burns low in the hall boy's cubby. You push open the kitchen door just enough to slip inside. It's empty but warm. The hearth coals still glow red like memory. You sit on the upturned crate near the stove and let the warmth seep into your knees. Your back pops. Your arms are too tired to lift above your head. But for once, there's no one asking you to. This is the hour no one owns. Not the family, not the housekeeper, not even the bellboard whose wires now hang still like sleeping snakes. This hour belongs to the forgotten. You glance around. Someone left a crust of bread on the counter, probably tossed during dinner prep too hard for the gentry. You break off a bit and chew slowly. It tastes like smoke and flour and rebellion. Then you notice it, something folded on the edge of the work table. A page, not a list, not an order. A letter. You don't read it. Not really. Just a name at the top, Elsie. And then the rest scrawled in a trembling hand. A mother's letter. News from home. A cousin's marriage. A sheep's death. A line about someone missing someone. You fold it again and set it back. Historians still argue whether the emotional labor of servants was acknowledged in Edwardian society, and standing there in the glow of dying coals, you know the answer. No. But that doesn't mean it didn't exist. You turn, and there on the edge of the stone floor is the cat. The one with the ribbons and the new shoes. She stares at you, then hops up onto the table like she owns it. You scratch behind her ears and whisper, "Tell no one." She purrs like a kettle. The moment breaks when the door creaks behind you. It's the tweeny barely 12 wrapped in a coat far too big, wiping her eyes. "Couldn't sleep," she mumbles. You pour her a mug of warm water and nod toward the crate. She sits. You both sip. For once, you're not fetching ironing bowing or pretending not to feel things. You're just here. Two souls in the hush of a house that never quite rests. "Do you think they dream like us?" the girl asks. You blink. Who? "The family. Upstairs." You pause, then shake your head. "They probably don't dream," you say. "They just expect things." She laughs quiet, soft, a threadbare giggle. Then silence again. Eventually, she slips back to her room. You stay behind, not quite ready to move. The kitchen smells of ashes, lemon peel, and sleep. You rise, stretch, and head down the corridor once more. Past the coal room. Past the drying lines. Past the servants' staircase. You catch sight of yourself in a dark window. Just a blur, a wisp in an apron. But this time, it doesn't feel like erasure. It feels like endurance. You climb the last set of steps, toes silent on the worn wood, and slip back into your room. The blanket is still warm. You lie down again. This time, when your eyes close, you don't flinch at the creak of the pipes or the groan of the house. You don't think of pillowcases or soup spoons. You let yourself drift, even if only for a moment, even if only until the bell. You are deep inside a dream, something about standing in the garden barefoot, the gravel warm beneath your toes, the air thick with lavender and sun, and then the bell rings. Not a sharp one, not urgent, but real. Your eyes open. It's still dark, the kind of deep night where even the moon has gone to sleep. You can't tell the hour. The lamp in the corridor has burned out. There's no fire in the hearth downstairs now, only cold stone and colder breath. You swing your legs over the bed. Every muscle protests. You've barely slept, but that's not new. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders and step out into the quiet, soft darkness. The air is heavy with the kind of stillness that seems to whisper. The bellboard glows faintly with the pull of one small wire. The nursery. You blink. That bell almost never rings at night. You creep up the stairs, shoes in hand, muffling each step as best you can. The nursery is on the second floor in the west wing, past the portrait of the Earl's great-grandfather who stares at you like he suspects you of stealing the wallpaper. You knock once on the nursery door gently. No reply. You enter. The governess is half asleep in her rocker, eyes closed, the faintest snore escaping. One of the children, Isabel, has tangled herself in the blanket and started to cry softly. You don't speak. You walk to the cradle, untuck the blanket from her foot, and smooth it over her tiny form. She quiets. You whisper a lullaby. You barely remember one. Your own mother used to hum when you were too small to know. Exhaustion was a choice. A soft wandering tune, something about willows in the wind. She breathes evenly again. You wait a few minutes to be sure. The governess doesn't stir. She'll never know you came. That's all right. You retreat just as quietly as you came. Down the stair, past the velvet curtain, past the fireless grate, past the sideboard where silver waits for polishing. You won't do until morning. Down, to your room. The door groans faint and familiar. You fall into bed again. This time, you don't even bother with the blanket. You curl on your side and press your fingers beneath your cheek, trying to hold your warmth in one place. And you do fall asleep this time, for a little while, until the bell, again, sharp, echoing. 6. Zetsetawa, M. It's morning, and it's already time to rise. You lie still for a moment, letting the ache sink into your bones like rain into the earth. You survived yesterday. You will survive today. It's what you do. You swing your legs out of bed. You dress again in silence. You pin your hair. You tie your apron. You touch the edge of the jug to see if there's still water left to splash on your face. See, there is barely. You move through the routine like a ghost, stepping back into her skin. You light your first grate. You polish your first knob. You breathe in coal smoke and soap. The house yawns awake again around you. Somewhere above a bell rings. And just like that, you go on, because in this world rest is brief, but survival is ritual, and you've mastered both. So here you are once more in your little cot beneath the beams, the morning light beginning to push its way through the cracks in the wall. The mansion hums softly now like a living thing with a pulse and breath just under the surface, just beyond sleep. You've lit the fires. You've folded the linen. You've scrubbed the marks no one else sees. And through it all, you've moved like wind, like water, like habit. Now, as your eyes begin to close again just for a moment, you let the aches ease away. Let the rhythm slow. Let the noise of footsteps and kettles and clinking silver dissolve into hush. Feel the blanket across your legs coarse but warm. Hear the faintest bird song beyond the courtyard wall. Somewhere far away a kettle is whistling, but not for you. Not yet. You've done enough for now. The bells are still. The work will wait. Let your breath soften. Let your shoulders drop. You're safe here for these few precious heartbeats tucked between hours. Let the world fade. Let the hush hold you. And sleep. Gentle, silent, earned. Good night. End of script. Sweet dreams.